And I'm your moderator, again, Rosanna Pike from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. And I'd like to, as part of coming from the public as well, to continue commending the Jamaica Library Service for their profound work. All right, so to this morning, we are going to go ahead to do a 13-minute talk with Dr. Agri Irons. Dr. Agri Irons is a consultant psychiatrist, and he's also a chair member on the board of the Jamaica Coalition for Tobacco Control, otherwise known as JCTC. He will be doing a mini presentation to the public on stress management in diabetes. So I'll go ahead to begin. He's not here with us physically. It's a pre-recorded presentation. I'll go ahead to share that with you now, and we'll do a question and answer right after.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I am hoping that I find you not under the weather, but feeling as sweet as you're allowed to feel in spite of perhaps suffering from diabetes. Diabetes, as you probably know, is loosely referred to as sugar. And you will notice that right now in the entire world, life is not so sweet. It is the human being's response to stress and to life not being sweet, usually to add a little sugar. This is the worst time to play around with what is called an underlying disorder. You will notice I don't refer to diabetes as a disease. We don't have to make it become a disease, but we do have to acknowledge a condition and learn to control it, coexist with it, and hopefully one day conquer it. So as we move towards the day when perhaps COVID will be over, COVID may be gone, but diabetes will linger for some time. Consequently, we have to have a strategy for dealing not just with one stress, but with the conjoint stresses of the condition and the corona. Let's start with a definition. Stress is a human condition. That's the first thing we have to understand. It is a response. Stress is a human response. And it is a human response to one thing and one thing only. And that thing is called change. And if it is a change in your blood sugar or a change in your environment, it's still change and it has to be responded to. Human beings respond to change by either engaging it, fighting it, dealing with it, or avoiding it and running away as fast as they can. I'm sure you have heard of the fight and flight response, which involves many chemicals in the body, most of which tend to cause more sugar or glucose to become available to fuel the anticipated fight. Therefore, when we are under stress, it is more likely than not that we will have an increased level of sugar in the blood in response to the fact that life is no longer sweet. In order to respond, human beings have to behave in a particular way. And that is the second definition that I want us to remember at this time and for the rest of the month, the rest of the week, rest of the year, and the rest of our lives. And that is the definition of behavior. Behavior is everything. not just to a psychiatrist, but to everyone. Behavior is everything in three parts. Behavior is everything we think, everything we say, and everything we do. Consequently, if we are going to fight, then we have to think like a fighter, talk like a fighter, and then fight. Usually in that sequence. One more time. Behavior is everything we think, number one, everything we say, number two, and everything we do. And therefore, it is important at this time to think about diabetes, to talk about diabetes, and to do the things that will tend to keep diabetes at bay, especially during this time of COVID. How do we think? How do we talk? And what do we say? What we think, say, and do is supposed to help us to cope. And those of you who are good spellers will know that cope is spelled COPE. And in order to remember the things that we have to do, the behavior that we have to manifest, the coping behavior with the stresses that come upon us, especially at this time, we're going to use the letters of COPE just as a reminder. If you can think of all the C words that you've ever heard, and the ones especially that begin with CO, words like communicate, cooperate, coordinate, words like not CO anymore, but words like culture and context. If we learn, if we think in a coordinated, cooperative context, particularly bearing in mind our cultural norms and philosophies, then we as Jamaicans are going to be very prepared to deal with those stresses. First of all, we must remember that we are not alone. Caregivers abound, and diabetes is one of those conditions that, say, the Diabetic Association and many other health giving groups are acquainted with. Diabetes has been with us from before slavery, but slavery and the food that we had to eat did accentuate some of our habits, and we have got to change the cultural context in which we eat. In other words, when life is not sweet, we have to resist the temptation to add sugar, to do snacking, to reach for the easy foods, the foods that culturally we have been accustomed to. We have to give them up. We have to coordinate our efforts, both the caregivers and those to whom care is being given, in order to change the cultural context of consumption. What we consume is what becomes us. If we are behaving appropriately, then we have to start thinking before we open our mouths. The mouth is a strong organ of the body. And I say organ, although it is indeed a many functional system in and of itself, but that is where digestion starts. That is where we eat, that is where we talk, and sometimes, occasionally, we have other uses for the mouth. But that's not the context in which we're speaking culturally today. So what we say is just as important as what we think, but we have to observe the sequence. We have to think before we talk. And when we talk, we must spread information that is relevant in our cultural context. Every Jamaican knows the saying, good, better, best, never let it rest until your good be better and your better best. Now that cultural context best describes how we should deal with thinking and talking to one another. We have to make our situation. Yes, we do recognize that we've been spending a lot of time and energy but we have to spend even more time and energy, especially now, on how we inform each other about the calories, the printouts on the back of the labels, the whole business of what we eat, what we drink, and why we should avoid the high calorie stuff. So we think, so we talk, and then we do. We have to act. And action, as we say in Jamaica, is not a bag of mouth. It means that legislation, it means that our government and those associated with government need to take seriously the cries of the health profession to resist the fast food industry and those who would want us to substitute high calorie foods for the energy that we can get from low calorie foods. It's very, very important that we deal with our tubers and so on, rather than with the more complex carbohydrates that tend to end up as fat. I think it's appropriate that part of the response to COVID, the whole business of tanning at your yard, requires that you think about what you have at home. Think about what you buy at the supermarket. Think about how you prepare your meals, meaning it is time to think before we act. Don't get into the bad habits of just picking up and I'm going to name it, condensed milk, the granulated sugar, and so on, because it's easy. We have to do the difficult thing and we have to do it and get it right. A big part of staying at home means that we sometimes have more time on our hands. And finally, in response to the stresses, in response to the objective of staying at home and keeping healthy, we also end up with a lot of time on our hands. We need to practice what I call home time management. Not because we are spending more time at home, it means we must exercise less because we're not going to the bus stop or walking around the office or climbing stairs or so on. We have to consciously use our time wisely. And a big chunk of it has to do with exercise. Remember that COVID affects our lung capacity. And the fitter we are, the better lung capacity we have. The more we exercise in response to our diabetes or our diabetes prevention, the better we breathe, the better we convert energy from the air that we breathe into and through the glucose that we produce and the breakdown processes that take place. So exercise, time for exercise, managing our time so that we don't spend all the time sleeping or working or educating children, but we have to make sure we take time for our bodily exercises. Finally, if we take it seriously, if we take our condition seriously, if we are serious about our singular response, if we can share this seriousness with our community, with our nation, then one of these days, life will truly be a little bit sweeter.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there we have it from Dr. Agri Irons, a consultant psychiatrist who gave us some tips on how to cope with diabetes and the management of stress, as this is critical. As I said before, sadly he was not able to join us, but we are able to forward questions to him. Any comments that you may have on the psychological aspect of stress It doesn't have to pertain to diabetes, or feel free to forward them in the chat. I was, as usual, checking our YouTube live. I do see Shani Bird commenting fight or flight response and think, say, do behavior. Coping behavior is really critical during this time. Indeed, especially now in the context of COVID, where we know that underlying conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, and heart diseases are, risk factors for contracting the virus. So we indeed have to think, right? It is important in a situation like this, so how we perceive the virus itself and the conditions that we're living with, how we speak about it. Because what you think actually affects how you speak, and what you do, what actions you take to address it, or what precautionary measures we are going to take. So indeed, you are right, Shani. She also has a question. In the meantime, feel free, those who are on Zoom or in the public, you're free to type your comments or questions in the chat, or if you want to voice it after I announce this question, you can do so. And what will happen is that we here at the Library Service, Jamaica Library Service, and the Heart Foundation, we will forward these to Dr. Agri Irons, and he will indeed provide response. And what we'll do is to post them on both our platform, both companies or organizations' platforms. So both the Heart Foundation of Jamaica and the Jamaica Library Service, we will be posting. So Shani said, Doc, giving up the things I love eating has been a real challenge, and I'm sure we can all relate, but she's doing better. And she wants to know how to get over the guilt when I do give in to eating them. Everybody will have different coping mechanisms, which is, he did touch on the aspect of cope. So what I will do, Shani, is that I will forward your question to Dr. Agri Irons after the presentation, and we will definitely get the response out. So you can just watch out for it being posted on both the Heart Foundation of Jamaica and the Jamaica Library Services platform. I do see questions coming in the Zoom chat. So Andrew White said, really food for thought, indeed. And Alison is asking, what are the symptoms of diabetes? Maybe I could, based on my knowledge, I could probably provide some of those for you, Alison. So the symptoms of diabetes are generally ranked most times. We have the most frequent ones, and then you have the most severe ones. Those are more serious. So some of the symptoms are like blurry vision, frequent urination. So you find yourself having to go to the bathroom to urinate very often, especially at night. Frequent thirst is also one of those factors. You find you're being thirsty. And then, in school, we learned this, they say water full of salt or water full of sugar. So because of that excess, it, pulls water from your body. So that's what is happening. So that's why you get frequent thirst. It also affects the eyes as well. So that's one of the causes for the blurry vision. There are other factors like weight loss, especially if it's unintended. So for some people, they do gain weight. Some people, they do lose weight, even when they're not trying. And there are a host of other factors, such as another symptom which is considered severe. It's foot. So it's something you find discoloration on your feet, so like some dark blotches in the nails or on the what we call the foot bottom, or you get wounds that don't heal quickly. So they turn into sores, and you find that they're not healing properly over time. So those are just some of the severe and frequent symptoms. But what I'll do, I'll still forward those that question to Dr. Agri Irons or another professional who can give you a more clear answer. I see Andrew also mentioned in the Zoom chat that it's a good reminder about being active at home in this time of COVID. Indeed, Andrew, and probably if you were here earlier to catch us with Ms. Plummer from the Health Promotion Unit at Ministry of Health and Wellness, she did give some tips on that. But you can actually check the YouTube, the Jamaica Library Services YouTube, for a recording of that session, and it will give you some pointers, especially if you want to lose weight, how long you have to work out, and the minimum is at least 30 minutes for 5 times daily. All right, so what I would also like to do, guys, you can keep your questions or comments rolling in, and we're actually making a note of them to forward to Dr. Agri Irons and any one of the members of our panel who presented before and will be presenting, and they will provide the response. I'll also like to take the time to inform you that at the end of our presentations, final one is tomorrow at 11 a.m. At the end, we will be having a raffle. So all participants, if you'd like, you can say if you wish to be exempt from this, we'll be having a gift basket raffle courtesy of the both organizations, and will be across all 14 parishes, right? So your names will be entered into a raffle to win a gift basket, and this will be aired live tomorrow after a final presentation with Miss Marie Powell. She's a regional dietitian for the Southern Regional Health Authority, and tomorrow she'll be talking about studying and nutrition in the management of diabetes, especially in the case of COVID. All right, I don't see anything more coming in from the Zoom, but a thumbs up from Shani. Thanks, Shani. And I see it's good to be active even when we sit at work, do a little movement with your hands. Thank you, that is indeed correct, Heinz. Yeah, and I mean, with a little tips as well. I mean, while you're at work, instead of like if you normally drive to get lunch during your lunchtime, I mean, you can probably get a coworker, your closest coworker. If you have a group, you'll probably walk to your favorite restaurant and you walk the journey back, or instead of taking the escalator or the elevator, you take the stairs. You get that little, movement going and pumping the heart. So you go, take the stairs up, take the stairs down. If you normally park right in front of the building, I mean, you park a little farther away to kind of walk persons, to kind of encourage some walking in and out. So those are just some quick tips. Even do some stretches at your desk, at some time. Sometimes you need a breathe, or you need a break from being around the screen and being, so consumed in your work. You can just take a little fresh air, walk, go outside, walk, come back in, and you'll be good to go. And okay, and for persons entering the raffle, you go ahead to provide your name. You could just provide your name in the Zoom chat or the YouTube chat. And we would like full names, please, for when we're doing the raffle tomorrow, that we can properly identify you. So we need proper identities, please, in the Zoom chat to be entered into the raffle. So the floor is still open to any other questions, comments, concerns before we close. Nobody has any questions, no concerns. Good, thank you, Andrew. All right, so we have names coming in for the live raffle tomorrow. Thank you, Carlene. Oh, from St. Mary, that's nice. That's awesome. So yes, guys, I'm actually making notes of all these names. Any other question, concern? All the way from Portland, Onicia Roper. It's nice to see person St. Anne. We have a Nicola Carr, and from the Stony Hill branch. So it's nice to see that we have persons across all the parish library networks joining in. Hi, Suzette from the headquarters, St. Thomas. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, seeing that we have no more questions, what we'll do, we'll keep the chat running for at least another minute for persons to keep entering your name and the parish you're from for the raffle. But we'll see you again tomorrow, same place and same time at 11 for our last presentation on studying and nutrition in the management of diabetes, especially in the case of COVID. And then right after, we'll go into our grand draw of that raffle prize of gift baskets for across all 14 parishes. So until tomorrow, guys, have a lovely rest of your day.